You're listening to Only in Seattle.
Welcome to the Only in Seattle podcast. I'm not going to say which number it is, but we are in double digits. So I want to introduce our folks that are helping produce this podcast super quick. We've got Nikki Smith. We've got Tristan Yolton, sorry. Just butcher your name, Tristan, sorry. Starts with a Y, it's tricky. And Darian Dunstan. And so thank you guys for making this happen today. All right, so this is a simple eating strategies for the holiday season podcast. Normally we talk about business, normally we talk about real estate, but we're going to hang a little bit of a left-hand hook here and go down a different road. But I think it's a topic that applies to everybody. So I'm going to introduce our guest here today. And she is Alex Berg, and she is an IFBB Professional bodybuilder. She's the only bodybuilder to come out of the city of Medina, Washington. That's where Bill Gates is from. And she's a recent graduate of Purdue University. And while going to school at Purdue University, Alex earned her pro card at her second amateur bodybuilding competition ever, which has only happened, I think, we couldn't figure out the fact checking on that, but probably only a couple of times ever has somebody earned it. Some people spend all their careers trying to get a pro card and don't. Alex has amazing genetics and works super hard in the gym. She's an expert in training, physiology, nutrition, and food prep. So on this podcast, we are going to get from Alex tips, tricks, and eating advice as we head into the worst time of the year for most people to gain weight, the holidays. Welcome to the Only in Seattle podcast, Alex. It's nice to have you.
Thank you.
And so we should let the listeners and viewers on YouTube know that the way you and I met was at the Bellevue Club. We just happened to work out at the same gym.
Yeah, see you there all the time. And
yeah.
Just took a long time
See
to
my
get
kids
the introduction.
there, some of their friends there.
Yep.
And I've kind of known who you are for quite a while, but until one of my kids went up and talked to you, I mean, I'm just not going to randomly go up and talk to another kind of person training there. I'll talk to guys, but not gals.
It's okay.
I know. But we know each other now, and we kind of talked about having you on the podcast and going over this topic, which I think is an amazing topic because everybody kind of struggles with eating during the holidays. And I was recently having a conversation with one of my summit brokers. His name is Oscar Halar, and he's also an amateur bodybuilder.
Nice.
And he's like, hey, it is so hard to meet up with clients and go out to eat, maybe have a few drinks and make some bad food choices as a real estate broker or as somebody in business. And so we had that conversation. Yeah, it's tough. You got to, discipline yourself. And so I kind of wanted to do a podcast with you on how do you get through the holidays without gaining a ton of weight?
And I have a plethora of tips and tricks that I've thought of, but I personally don't go out too much over the holidays just because I like to keep my diet as tight as possible. And eating at restaurants and eating at holiday parties, you don't really know what's going into that food because you're not personally cooking it. So there's a lot of variables that you have to just try and guess and check and put into however you like to calculate your nutrition or macros. It just gets into be a lot of gray zone. So we've brainstormed a couple of ideas of how you can get through your holiday parties without completely going off the rails.
Just destroying your diet or whatever you've got going on.
Too many pieces of pumpkin pie.
Yeah, too many pieces of pumpkin pie, too many big turkey dinners with mashed potato, too many company drinks at company functions. Most big companies have at least one drinking function. And if you get invited to a handful, it's just like, there's 3 or 4 times where you're just not eating what you probably should be.
And you want to be on the same level as your coworkers that are there, so you're automatically obligated to have at least one drink, and one drink usually is not the limit. It usually goes far beyond that because you want to feel comfortable and social and warm and cozy on the inside with your coworkers and their spouses. But
you got to keep up.
You got to keep up.
Don't be a quitter.
Yeah, and you want to be on the same level, and
right.
Unless you really go in with your goals in mind. And saying that I'm not going to drink, I'm just going to have like another, cup of my whatever red solo cup. I'm going to fill it with something else. But most people don't do that.
Yeah, people don't know what's in your cup.
Exactly. So as long as you're carrying one around, that would be my personal strategy, is just
Right.
filling it up with water. Because I don't want someone like negging
Speaking
me
of
saying
which.
like, why aren't you drinking anything? Come on, let's get you a
Right.
drink, because your hands are empty. So
And
just
once
like,
they're 2 or 3 drinks in, they're not going to know.
yeah, exactly.
So, well, tell me a little bit, how did you become a professional bodybuilder? Give me a little bit of that background.
Well, when I was in high school and before that, I was really into competitive soccer. So I played premier level soccer my whole life. And then once I got to college, I had gotten a couple of injuries and didn't want to play in college. So I got to Purdue and just went there off of academics and was like, I don't want to get the freshman 15. So what am I going to do? Well, first of all, I'm not
Freshman 15 being
the
freshmen
15
gain
pounds you
15
get
pounds
in-
that first
yeah.
year. And why do they gain that?
Usually because it's a lot of drinking, and when you're in high school, you're doing so many different sports and you're really active. So combining all of that extra exercise and calorie output and the lack of drinking, so you're usually like a lot fitter in high school, and then the second you get to college, you're like engrossed with all of this drinking culture and people wanting to, like I said, being on the same level,
Yeah.
not having a red Solo cup in your hand. People are just like, okay, it's time to drink, and that was just never really my shtick.
Not
but,
your thing.
But
Yeah.
even when I got there, I did try drinking, and it really wasn't for me. It seemed like everybody in Indiana had like been very well versed in drinking and beer and vodka. I just couldn't handle it. I just really couldn't.
Not your thing.
Not my thing.
Yeah.
But I did join a sorority, so that was kind of the culture that submersed me within alcohol. But really early on, I decided it wasn't for me, and so I started going to the gym. And I had already been going to the gym in high school on the days that I wasn't training for soccer, but not super serious. I was doing all of the rookie mistakes, like doing excessive cardio, not challenging myself with like really, really heavy weight just because I didn't know about it. And then once I got to Purdue, it was like, I think it's because it's so flat there. You don't have like a lot of other people doing like cross training outside or going on hikes because there's no hills or anything you can really do. And then in the summer, it's really buggy and humid. So people aren't really going outside to get their exercise. Whereas when in Washington,
Yeah.
growing up here, everybody's
That's when you
doing,
go
like,
out.
people are going
Yeah.
on hikes and are going out on the water, doing different kinds of sports. And it just felt like there's never an end for people in Washington to get fit. But in Indiana, it's like there's a lot less opportunities to control your weight other than keeping your nutrition in line, which if you know a lot about the Midwest, there's usually not a whole big emphasis on eating super clean. Plus, it's like
Eating is a sport in the Midwest.
Yeah,
And the
there-
Southwest.
so is drinking. I mean,
Yeah,
the two go
right.
hand in hand. So you're at a party, you're at a family function, everybody's drinking. There's a lot of smoking, there's a lot of cigarettes, and that wasn't even huge in Washington. So in terms of health, people didn't really pay attention to it out there. So the two sports that I did come across that most people in Indiana did was either CrossFit or bodybuilding, and that was totally new to me. So I was being educated by all my gym friends about bodybuilding and lifting heavier, and so I did that probably for a year and a half, like just building it up. And
Like your freshman year, halfway into your
freshman year,
sophomore
sophomore
year,
year,
like that.
and then sophomore year to junior year, I just started really buckling down, and my main social outlet was going to the gym. There's so many friends there who are encouraging you, who are able to spot you, and they're always telling you you're way stronger than you think. So they would push me a lot more than I was thinking that I was capable of. And that's when I stopped doing such excessive cardio and started to focus more on weights. And then, some of my friends were competing, and I had been exposed to this sport before, but not super serious about it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get a coach because I want somebody to at least dial in my nutrition, because I've never had somebody tell me what I need to eat in order to be successful. I'd always just kind of guessed and ate healthy, but didn't really know how
Like most people do.
Right. It's like you know generally how to stay healthy, and the big idea is calories in versus calories out. So energy balance is ultimately king. So you want to make sure that you're eating enough to fuel your basal metabolic rate, in addition to the extra calories that you're burning on top of your workout. And that's, going to be the key threshold for how many calories you need to eat. But I didn't really know how much that was, I didn't know what my basal metabolic rate was. So hiring a coach that has done this before, she specializes in bodybuilding, was really, really helpful. And that's when I noticed my body start to change drastically. And
this is after like a year and a half? Is that right?
Of doing it in an amateur way. But in terms of when I hired her, it was like immediately. So within like the first 2 to 4 months, my body responded so quickly. I got really lean, and I didn't feel like I was starving or anything because I knew exactly what I was supposed to eat. I didn't eat under, I didn't eat over. I felt like this is what I know I can eat and I'm going to be really successful. And that's exactly what happened. And then I decided after like 2-4 months, like, okay, I'm ready to do a show. Originally, I wasn't really sure if I wanted to or not. I just kind of wanted to dial in my nutrition. And then once I saw the results, I was like, I can do this bodybuilding thing. Like my body's made for it, given like how lean I got so quickly. And then I did my first show, got first runner up at my first show down in Florida. So that qualified me for nationals. And then I went to my first national show about 2 months after that. So only 8 weeks of prep after my first show, and then went into my first national show and got first runner up overall and got my pro card.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Totally didn't see that coming.
Yeah. So from the time you started dialing in your diet and doing some shredding until you got your pro card, how long was that time period?
Not quite 8 months, 6 months, somewhere there.
Right. So that's what nobody ever typically does.
I think it also comes down to like where your body's at before you start prepping. And I was already had a lot of muscle mass, didn't have a whole lot of fat to lose. So that's why when I first jumped on a diet, and my body had never been on a diet before. I mean, I had definitely underate before, just because I didn't really know about it. I just knew I needed to eat less, but I did, some crucial rookie mistakes like eating a ton of protein and like no carbs. It was like tuna, Greek yogurt, tuna, salad. Like there was no carbs coming in. So once I was able to have a certain amount of carbs that I knew I needed, my body responded super well, and I was just blown away by the results. So then I just realized that bodybuilding was my sport.
That's your thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy, because to put that in perspective, like we talked about earlier, some people spend their entire career trying to obtain what you did in 8 months.
Yeah, and that's why I felt like I'm a super rookie to the sport.
Right.
Moreover, I'm a rookie in the pro league. So now I feel like a baby on ice. I mean, everybody in there is amazing looking, and they're from all over the world. You're competing with people from every different country you can imagine, and you don't know if they're doing this full time as their career. Maybe they own a gym, maybe they own a nutrition company, maybe they're just sponsored a whole bunch by different companies that they work with, and that's how they make their income. Or you get a bunch of people coming in with different kinds of jobs, and then bodybuilding is more of their hobby. And it's really cool because you're going to go up there with like nurses and doctors and lawyers who are also bikini athletes. So they're really inspiring women that you get to talk to backstage. And everybody's very like group oriented. Everybody's kind of rooting for each other. There's not a whole lot of bad mouthing or between competition. So it's the community that I was welcomed into that really made me want to keep doing it.
Let's talk about that community a little bit. Let's talk about the division that you compete in is the bikini division.
So that's the smallest one.
Right, so run us through from that one, go up. Because I think a lot of people still have, especially of my generation, have that mental concept of female bodybuilders
are huge.
And
bulky.
They're
and not
bulky,
feminine.
jacked, and not very feminine.
Yeah.
Of which you do not fall into that category.
No, I scoff at people that think that. Because
right.
But
that's what we have in our heads.
Yeah,
and it's like, she's a pro bodybuilder. She doesn't look like that, but then she's in bikini division. I don't really know what that is. So walk us through what that looks like.
So bikini, it started as kind of like more of the model-y division, and it's really progressed a lot throughout the years. It's gotten way more muscular. What bikini looks like now, 10 years ago, is what figure looks like. Figure is the next step up from bikini, where you're worried a little bit more about your back muscles and wide lats, and then you still want a small waist. And then they look at glute development and leg development. Bikini, they don't really want big legs, but they want big glutes. They want a tiny waist and some lats. So you have a nice X frame with big shoulders, but you're not supposed to show your back in bikini, so you have to like keep your hair covered. And in figure, you want to show your back because you want to show all of the back development. And then up from that is physique, and then up from that is bodybuilding. And one of the biggest distinguishers between each of those is there's a lot more performance enhancing drugs as you continue on in the divisions, just because the rate at which you're putting on muscle can be pretty slow. I mean, for a female, you can get newbie gains. Same with men. If you've never lifted before, you get a lot of muscle mass, especially if you're eating the right diet in those first few months of training for the first time. But then once you've been training for a while, it's really hard to get the same effect of newbie gains. So people turn to performance enhancing drugs if they're really looking to put on more muscle mass. But bikini, we're not too concerned about being bigger. We're concerned about the overall shape. That's what you're judged on. And then like appearance, the hair, the nails, the tan, your suit, it's like the whole package that comes together is what they're looking for. And, you can have some bikini athletes that are smaller and more feminine, and then you can have some that are more muscular. I range a little bit more on the muscular side, but I definitely couldn't do figure. I'm not big enough for that. I'd have to put on substantial muscle.
Like how much? So give the people kind of a range when you are not competing, and if you're not comfortable talking about it, but you're bodybuilding.
Fine.
So weight-wise, you are between what and what?
And that's hard because there are so many different heights in bikini, so it's not like that really matters. I think in some other divisions, for men, they do weigh-ins before the show, but weight is such a minute.
So it's not that big of a deal what the weight is.
Yeah, because it's your lean muscle mass. So like right now, I'm 16% body fat and 132 pounds, and I'm a little bit over 5'7".
Right.
So it's hard to say
and
what that
to
looks
put that
like.
in perspective for people who are kind of outside of the fitness industry, most women your age are probably going to be closer to double that.
Yeah, I mean, for a healthy woman, and to be considered athletic, you're usually, 20 to 25% body fat looks good.
I think that's super low. I think most are going to be considerably above that.
Well, in terms of like medical diagnoses, they say, I think it's above 25% or above 30% that you start to get obese. So I don't think that a lot of women my age are obese, but they definitely have more body fat because people in their early 20s are usually drinking because they're finally legal and they're still riding out that early excitement. But for me, it died very early. I'm not interested.
And obese is considered, I think, 20% over your recommended.
Perhaps.
So it is not hard. So if you are a 150-pound woman and we have
to think about how much of that weight is lean body mass and fat. So like I've been 150 and I was probably between 20 and 25%
Yeah, but you're
fat.
a whole nother.
But I'm saying it's like comes down to like what that weight is coming from. So people can be 150 but be like a lot more fat than they are muscle. So that's going to look a lot different. But if their normal weight should be 150 and they're 180 plus, they are considered obese. Yeah,
and
they
that
got
is
30 pounds of fat to lose.
Yeah, that's not hard to do.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty.
It really comes down to diet, and you have to make sure that you're exercising to keep that lean body mass, because that's what's going to give you shape and definition and muscle lines, which is what people want when they say they want to look toned or tight. All of these, no-namer words that we throw out there, but really what that comes down to is you have to have muscle mass in order to tone. You can't just like do a whole bunch of band workouts and hope that you're going to look toned. Like you have to put on muscle mass, which is going to increase your weight. So some people think that they just want to see the scale go down, but if you're always looking for the scale to go down, you're probably going to be losing some muscle mass in that too, especially if you're overdoing it on cardio and underdoing it on your diet.
And we've kind of talked about that. And I call that, and a lot of people call that, the skinny fat.
Yes.
So you are losing pounds from your overall body weight, but you are losing more muscle mass than you are fat. So now your percentage of your body fat actually goes up. Mm-hmm. So you weigh less, but it would be like you weighing less, but going from 16% body fat to 18%.
Yeah, exactly.
And that happens to people all the time, and they don't know it because they don't know how much body fat they have.
And they don't know how much to eat and how much they don't know how to properly use cardio. Like that shouldn't be your main source of losing calories. It should be coming from weightlifting and then your overall NEAT throughout the day, which is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So how many calories you burn just from like fidgeting, walking around the office, going up the stairs, brushing your teeth. Those are all going to contribute to your overall NEAT for the day, which is one of the largest places of calorie expenditure that we're going to get. In terms of your workout, that's only a fraction of...
It's only a few hundred calories.
Yeah, that's probably like 300 to 500 calories is
Maybe.
my guess.
Yeah, and you have one bad snack, you have erased those gains for the day.
Yeah, I go to Chipotle, gone.
Go to
Chipotle for lunch.
Go to Trader Joe's and get a bag of cheese crunchies.
Oh yeah, your cheese crunchies. See, I can't do the cheese crunchies because I know if I started, I wouldn't stop.
They're delicious.
So is cauliflower.
No, cauliflower's not.
It's only 60 calories.
Oh, yeah. So that's why I wanted to have you on the show, because you know your food so well.
Yes.
So let's get into. So did we cover all the? I feel like we didn't cover all of the divisions of bodybuilding. You got bikini, which you're in.
Figure, physique,
yep.
Bodybuilding.
And bodybuilding is like the old school bodybuilding I was talking about.
That's
just
like as big as you can get.
Just jacked up and all kinds of
lots of performance-enhancing drugs.
Yeah, still awkward.
Yeah.
And you don't see very many women competing in that.
I mean, they're out there, but I don't really know what states that they come from.
Because Darian and I went to the Emerald Cup.
Yep.
Here.
It's a regional show.
And
so that's like where you'd go if you've never competed in a show before. You can sign up for the Emerald Cup and compete.
Okay. Anybody can go.
Anybody can go.
There were only a handful of women competing in the bodybuilding division.
Which should benefit them as well, because they don't have as much competition against them in order to get that national qualifier, which is what people are going for at those kind of shows. They want to get nationally qualified, and then once you can compete at a national show, that gives you an opportunity to go for your pro card, which is what everybody wants.
That's what everybody's shooting for, which you have. Do you actually carry around your pro card?
It's like a paper.
Yeah.
I actually lost my wallet and it had 3 different pro cards in it from the years.
Yeah.
So what you do when you earn your pro card, they send you this little piece of paper, which some people get laminated, but I would just put it in my wallet. And then you just pay a certain fee at the beginning of the year. It's kind of like having a gym membership. You pay like $200, and then you can compete in as many shows as you want for the year. But then next year you have to renew it. When you're a national level competitor or a regional competitor, you have to pay to do those shows. So that's kind of the benefit of being a pro, is you can compete at as many shows as you want, and you don't have to pay to sign up.
So you just pay an annual membership fee, and then you get to compete.
Yeah. You have to email the IFBB Pro League and say, I'm going to do such and such show, and then they submit you a contract that you have to sign and send in so you don't back out, and then that's all you have to do, and then you get to compete for money.
You're good to go.
Which isn't a lot, but
can you make a living as a professional bodybuilder?
Some people do, but not necessarily from the prize money. That's not where your big money is going to come from. It's going to come from sponsorships and your social media content.
Right.
But people do it.
Something I forgot to mention about you, you have like 13,000, close to 14,000 followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I curated that when I was in college, and I took some time off from social media when I got done, and kind of went away for like a year and saw my follower count just slowly decrease because I wasn't posting the same amount.
Yeah.
But you really do have to put out a lot of content of yourself, a lot of content of your physique. And sometimes you don't want to show your physique, especially like for me, I went into an off season and like put on more body fat than I had wanted to, and I just kind of wanted to shy away, which happens to a lot of competitors. Also, it just takes a lot of work. A lot of vulnerability, a lot of putting yourself out there, and it's really hard to just do that all the time. I just kind of got fed up with taking pictures of myself. It really wasn't my thing, but I know that that's something that you have to do in order to get more followers. But I'm hoping that like one day people are really going to want to hear my recipes and my snack
your content.
hacks.
And we've kind of talked about that Instagram, and especially for fitness athletes, is they want to see a certain kind of content, but they don't really want to see deep content. Yeah. They will read it, but they won't respond to it. You don't know if they're getting it at all. It's kind of like us creating a lot of real estate content. People don't really engage with that, but they will consume it, and you just don't know. Whereas if you have, standard fitness shots, which are all over. If you've got a fitness feed like I do, people doing poses and doing all kinds of stuff, showing a lot of skin. That is what gets all the engagement.
And that's what's so sad is because you put up, you try and, at least this is my strategy, is I'll put up like one physique photo, then maybe a cooking photo, then maybe like a quote, and then a picture of my dog, and then a physique photo. I can see from the feedback of who's engaging with my content that the pictures that I'm posting of my physique get almost double the amount of interaction than the pictures of my dog or something funny, because it's still like my personal page. I used to have one that was solely a personal page, and I just abandoned it once I started my fitness Instagram, and then that's where all my followers came from, so I made that my main one. But I still wanted it to be my Instagram, so stuff that I thought was important to my life and what people might want to see that's also going on in my life outside of the gym to create this full person. I'm not just a gym Barbie. That's not all I stand for. In fact, it's very little of what I stand for, but it is a big part of my life and something that I really care about, but I want to try and balance it with this other stuff, and people just don't want to interact with that. I think it's also like when you're scrolling through a feed and you see a picture of like roasted chickpeas versus when you see a picture of some girl in a bikini on stage, you're probably going to be more awestruck by the girl in the bikini on stage than you are at just this picture of chickpeas. You're not going to go and look at the recipe or what the content is under that. You're just going to be like, blah, blah, I don't really care.
Don't care.
But the picture of the girl in the bikini, you're just like, okay, what's the caption here?
Right.
Like you might actually pay more attention.
And then engage with that.
And then engage with that.
Yeah.
So.
And that is just so standard in the fitness world.
Yeah.
It's just kind of, that's the way it is.
Yeah, and so I learned that. I built up my following, and then I kind of realized that that's kind of where it ended. And I just kind of walked away from social media for a while, lost a lot of followers, and now I've retained some. But I mean, I don't know how many of those are like active followers. There's probably a bunch of ghost followers in there, which just happen as you're building up a following. But
right. They followed you at one time, probably don't look at your content, whatever.
Yeah.
Still comes through.
Yeah.
But social media, what are you going to do?
I know.
Unfortunately, it's a really important part of what you guys do in the fitness world. It's kind of where you put out you as a competitor.
Because people they see how you look and they're like, well, if she can do it, then maybe I can do it. So how did she transform her body? Especially if there's like those transformation photos of like maybe what you looked like before you started lifting and eating right, and then after.
Yep.
But a lot of it does come down to genetics and like where you were at before you started lifting. Like I already had a lot of muscle mass just from doing soccer, especially in my lower body and my abdomen. And then once I started bodybuilding, I started worrying about building up my lats, something that I'd never considered in high school.
And tell people where the lats are.
Right under your armpits.
Yep.
So it
gives you that winged
nice
look.
X frame. So people say, if you're going and doing your back workouts, people say, I'm trying to grow my wings. Yeah. So I can fly away.
Like Sylvester Stallone in Rambo, amazing lats, just huge wings.
Nice and thick.
Yeah. Or Arnold back in the golden era.
Yeah.
Just amazing for a guy that's 6'2", just huge lats,
And the goal of that is the wider your back looks, the smaller your waist looks. So people want to see that, hourglass for a woman or like the X frame for a guy.
Right.
But that's ultimately what people are seeking.
Right. So for those out there seeking but are having a tough time eating through the holidays. So we just got through Thanksgiving. Maybe people indulged a little too much, like we said, a little too much pumpkin pie and whatnot. What are some strategies, say, going into the company dinner or the company drinks event? What can they do to kind of offset that or to put themselves in a position where maybe January 1, you're going to crank up your fitness?
Which I think a lot of people want to do starting January 1st. But if you completely just say, screw it over December, and then you want to get back on in January, you're going to be have very low motivation, probably a little bit of self-loathing and feeling guilty. And people don't want to have those feelings just to start off the new year. That's not a happy place to start.
Right.
So I think
But it's where most people start.
Because people are just saying screw it during December, especially because you're coming out of Thanksgiving.
And November.
Maybe you had like one slip up because it was one day on Thanksgiving. That's the first day of like all out eating. And now people are starting to make Christmas cookies, and then you're having like a Christmas breakfast, and then there's company parties. So the first thing I would say is maybe write down in your calendar what events you have going on later in the month. Maybe decide which ones you really want to enjoy. Maybe the ones with your family on Christmas Day is really important. But maybe you have like 1 or 2 holiday company events that you want to go to and you want to participate in, but you know that they're not really as important to you. So I would write those down and then put it in your, however you like to calculate or track your food, which I use MyFitnessPal, which is a macro calculator. It's a free app. You can just calculate how many calories. So it's an app
that you can download on your phone.
Yes.
And I talk about this all the time in the gym because nobody else cares. Because most people don't track their macros.
And macros are macronutrients. It's protein, fats, and carbohydrates. Just to
most people don't track that, and then also tracking your calories. So you've got those 3, the protein, fat, carbohydrate, and then you cumulatively you've got the calories.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of determines how your physique either takes on muscle or takes on fat or maybe stays even. So you use MyFitnessPal. I think a lot of other people do too.
Fitbit also has a very similar, that's what my mom uses.
Tracking
app.
Yep.
So I would say making sure that you're monitoring the food throughout the month, and just seeing, like, I'm going to stay to a certain calorie goal the rest of those days. And then if you can, look ahead onto the day that you have that holiday party, or log in 1 to 3 drinks. I would recommend 1, but I know some people have higher tolerance and they need 3 in order to feel good. So
about 5.
About 5, but maybe you can limit yourself because maybe you want to have endless glasses of wine with your family on Christmas Day. And if you're going to do that, then maybe like hold in the reins a little bit on those 2 holiday party days, because who are you there to impress, really? You're just trying to like get in, get out, say your hellos, be social, and you're just going to go home. So you don't want to be shooting yourself in the foot after a holiday party, knowing that you have another day coming up where you really would rather be enjoying yourself, but you don't want to have to get to Christmas and feel like, ugh, I already like went to those 2 holiday parties, I drank way more than I wanted to, now I'm going to have to restrict myself on Christmas, which nobody really wants to do. So I would say keep your macros tight throughout the rest of December. Maybe you want to do a challenge with your favorite influencer. They do tons of like 28-day, 30-day challenges just to keep you regimented throughout the rest of the month. And then that also gets you a little bit of motivation going forward, saying that I've already been so good about my diet and my exercise. I know that if I have done this for 15 days straight, for 20 days straight, that I can keep it up throughout the holidays. And so at least if I go to that holiday party, I know that I've already either gotten my workout in, or I'm going after, or the meals leading up to that holiday party were on point. So I know I've already calculated this into my macros for the day, that I'm going to have these drinks, I'm going to enjoy them, I'm not going to have more, I'm not going to have less, I'm going to enjoy what I said I was going to enjoy, and then go home and be done with it. But then on Christmas, don't track. It's just going to be
let
a pain.
Her rip.
Yeah, because you're grandma's cooking, your cousins are bringing food. You don't want to be that person that say, what's in this? How much butter did you use? How many eggs?
Which is funny because you are that one person.
Yeah, I tell my mom, if you're making something like a casserole, casseroles are very hard to track.
Yeah.
Because there's so much that goes in there.
Well, you have to put in so many ingredients on MyFitnessPal. You can create a recipe.
You totally can.
It's a lot.
And then it's like serving sizes. So if you take one serving, how much does that weigh versus like trying to eyeball it? If you want an accurate measurement, you should put it on a food scale. But, maybe she added a little bit of extra cream because she thought it would taste better. You can't really.
It probably did taste better.
And it probably does. And you want to be able to enjoy that without,
but it ups the fat
bad.
And it ups the calories and everything else as well. Okay, so strategy number 1 would be to kind of prioritize the days that you want to go rogue with your eating.
Yeah. And on the days that you feel like they're less important, so maybe those holiday parties, have a limit of things that that you can track. So like I'm only going to have drinks. I know that I'm going to eat before, so I'm not super hungry. I'm only going to drink at these parties. I'm going to have 1 to 3 drinks. I've already logged them in my nutrition calculator, and then I'm going to go home and have my other meal that I've already planned. If you're going to be eating rogue on those days too, again, it's going to throw another variable and curveball into the equation because you don't really know what people are going to be cooking with. But an option, if you do want to eat and go to those parties, is to bring something for yourself. I mean, you can cook something that you know what's going into it, and then bring it kind of like as a potluck or offering.
Eat my really healthy food.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe it's like some sort of like sweet potato casserole, and you know exactly what goes into it.
Yep.
It's fibrous, it's carb heavy. Maybe that'll help digest your alcohol at the same time, so you're not drinking on an empty stomach. I know I wouldn't want to do that, but maybe if you want to drink on an empty stomach, maybe you feel it more. Whatever works for you. But
what would be a good drinking strategy? So say that you know you're going to have 4 drinks. Let's call that a big night for somebody.
Okay. So
I call that just getting started, but different.
Well, I would
drill.
know exactly what I'm drinking.
Okay.
Probably don't have any additives with a sugary drink, or maybe you have like whiskey and Diet Coke. I don't even know what drinks people make, but I would stick to the clear alcohol.
Vodka and tonic.
Vodka and tonic, yes, something like that. And if you're gonna have 4, then however many calories that would be, that could be upwards of 600 calories, depending on how you take it. I mean, probably 150 per drink, 4 of those.
Yep.
It can get
and
up
the
there.
clearer the alcohol, this is what I've read, the clearer the alcohol, the less fat content. And hard alcohol obviously has less fat content and fewer calories because it's less.
But it's carbohydrate, and it's going to get broken down into sugar, and your body's going to...
And same thing with all alcohol as far as that goes.
Yeah. But maybe you're a wine person, and maybe you want to have 2 glasses of wine. You could have 3, but you're going to limit yourself to 2. That's 300 calories, so you've already logged that for the day, and that's going to come in the source of carbohydrates. So maybe you skip your morning bowl of oatmeal or your morning pancakes or what have you. Instead, you just opt for a protein shake or a bowl of Greek yogurt, and you do like half the fruit, because fruit's carbohydrates and sugar too. I wouldn't say you should substitute your fruit for alcohol. That's not like the wisest decision for like longevity purposes. But on one day, it's not going to kill you.
It's not going to kill you.
It's going to be carbohydrates. That's just one way to fit in your alcohol for the day. You're going to have 300 calories of wine at your holiday party, no more, no less. And for the rest of the day, you're going to eat around that. So just slight adjustments.
Right. Okay, so let's talk. So that's drinking strategy. How about the actual meal itself? You are sitting down to family dinner, and you have got a smorgasbord of food in front of you. What should you eat?
I would not go about it saying, I'm going to try everything, because then you're into a binge mentality. Like, I've been restricting this long. This is the day that I said I was going to eat. I'm going to eat everything. You can easily like blow out all of your hard work in one day just by...
But that's where the fun is.
I mean, if you like to binge, maybe. But
yes.
If you prefer to keep your gut in check, and you want to keep working on those 6-pack abs into January, so then come spring, you're already there. You don't feel like you have to keep covering up because you screwed yourself in January and December.
And that's why we're kind of talking about what we are, is because we're trying to eliminate as many mess ups that happen earlier in the year, and then it seems like it steamrolls over the holidays.
Exactly.
It's like, you know what, I'm going to have some candy at work. We make it a point to try and not bring candy in, except
really
when
good
Darian
idea.
brings
Don't
in.
bring it.
What's that?
Don't bring it.
Don't bring it.
If it's out of sight, out of mind. So even though I love pizza and donuts and chocolate, I'm not going to go to the grocery store to buy those things and put them in my house, because I know if I have them there,
You're going to eat them.
I'm going to eat them, and it's not usually going to be a serving size like what it says on the box or on the bag.
Right.
It's going to be more than that, and those are highly palatable foods. So it's really easy to go over on those, and those are way more calorie dense foods. Where if I'm stocking my house with cauliflower and tuna and bananas and almonds and things that I know exactly what's in them, I could look forward to those foods, but I also I know that I'm not going to overeat on them, because they're more filling, they're more voluminous, they're lower in calories. So I'm going to get full on the good stuff, and I'm not going to have because I mean, one piece of pizza is like 300 calories.
Yeah.
So,
depending on what kind of pizza it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's really hard to find pizza that is lower than 300.
And the pizza that is lower than 300 a piece, it does not taste good.
It's not worth it.
No. If
you
you're
want
going
the
to
good
blow
stuff,
your calorie expenditure, just go hard.
Yeah. But it's just like, for me, I would have to have like 3 pieces in order to feel maybe full, and that's maybe full. Like, I could probably eat more than that. And then you're into like the 1,000-calorie club in like one sitting, and you know that you've already had breakfast, you've already had lunch, and you're having this pizza at your company party. Maybe somebody brought in pizza before the end of the day, and so you didn't think about having these 1,000 calories
Right.
of pizza, and then you go home and have dinner because you're still not full.
Yeah.
The foods that you just ate are very low volume and really high in calories.
And a huge hit of sodium, which just bloats you up.
Yeah,
Which
you
on top
retain-
of the Christmas chocolate you ate earlier in the day, there's another 500 calories.
Yeah.
That's normal.
Yes. And if you're not drinking enough water, it's really easy for your subcutaneous fat to hold on to water right
Just
there.
retain.
So you look
Yep.
really watery, and then you're gaining like maybe 3-4 pounds of water just because you had all that extra sodium and you're not flushing out your system.
Right.
So if you do feel bloated, one thing that you can do is up your water intake for that
Drink
day.
a bunch of water. Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's the best way to drop that extra little water
Yeah.
that's hanging out right underneath your skin.
So I saw one of your strategies. I think it was either yesterday or today. I can't remember, because I knew we'd done a little bit of prep on this, but not a ton. And it was, if you know you're going to be doing a family function or a company function, have 2 scoops of protein in water at like 10 a.m., another 2 scoops of protein in water at 2 p.m., and then just let it all hang out during your actual meal.
Yeah, because there's probably not going to be like a lot of protein sources. There might be one or
Right.
two, especially if it's like a turkey or a chicken is like your main dish. But it's going to be a lot of those sides, those casseroles, those green beans. That's where all the action is, and that's what people usually bring.
Yeah.
They don't really bring the entree. Maybe one person
Right.
cooks the entree, so that's where going to be your main source of protein. Everything else is going to be mostly comprised of carbs and fats.
Carbs, yeah.
So if you know that you're hitting your protein goal, then you can really enjoy all of those side dishes that grandma made without
Right.
having to feel like
Mashed
you're neglecting
potatoes and
her.
gravy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know that all I've had is protein today, so I know I have 200, 300 grams of carbohydrates that I can eat, so I'm going to have these mashed potatoes and not feel bad about it. But do know those mashed potatoes are probably not just plain potatoes.
No, they got some butter.
In a bowl.
They
There's
got
some
some
butter.
cream.
There's cream. There's probably, a bunch of other good stuff. Maybe crumbly breadcrumbs. You don't know.
Maybe a roll,
Yeah, 2
maybe 2, with some butter.
with more butter. So
Yeah.
that's more carbs and fats.
Yeah. I mean, 'tis the season.
But this is the whole point of the podcast. This is not the season to just say, screw it, I'm going to go all in on this binge.
So how do people slow down or get it in their head, I actually need to be accountable for my eating? How does that take place? Like,
Well, that's why I think making sure that you're in the beginning of the month, so starting right now, not waiting until December 25th to say, like,
Yeah.
I should probably be eating appropriately and not like a jerk.
yeah,
Because your body is what you have to look at every single day. And if you really care about your physique, then you should do the best things for it, which is going to be feeding it right, exercising it right, lowering your stress levels, drinking enough water, taking care of yourself overall. So if you want to have that one day to enjoy, setting yourself up for success in the beginning of the month is going to be really crucial. So sticking to your macros
Right.
throughout the rest of the month, and then allotting yourself those calories that you want at your holiday parties, and not just saying screw it on those days. I'm gonna have all these entrees that people brought. I'm gonna have the drinks that I said I'm going to. I'm gonna enjoy myself, and then I'm gonna go home and get back on my diet because I've made this room for myself. I knew that I was gonna come here. I knew what I was gonna drink. But the day that I want to actually enjoy myself and not track and have a little bit more easy breathing is gonna be on Christmas.
right.
Yeah.
So just prioritize the dates you're going to have a blowout.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on that day that you do have a blowout, what I would say is ask your relatives, like, is this good? Like, have you tried this? See what people say about the different dishes. See, maybe you can decide what's worth those calories and what's not. And then if you know, like, okay, this corn casserole isn't worth the calories, but I do want to try it, just have a little bite just to satisfy it and be like, okay, it's not that good. I don't need to have a full serving of it. Have a full serving of the things that you know you really want, or have like good recommendations. Maybe it's something that your grandma makes every single year and you only get it once a year. So go and enjoy it, but have one serving so then you can have a mismatch of different things that you want without overdoing it on one certain thing.
So it's kind of like do a sampling, but have some restraint and have a little bit of portion control.
For sure.
And then you're kind of off the hook. You get to taste everything, but you haven't had a massive meal, which I think the average Thanksgiving The average American consumes something like 2,600 calories in that meal.
And that's more than I eat in a day.
Right. And you're exercising.
Yeah.
So you are burning off another, call it 500 calories.
Yeah, on a good day.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. So that's why, and then people are, and you're young. So you've got a younger person's metabolism. You're not old like me at 51 and lower testosterone levels. So I have to work that much harder to stay at the same energy expenditure level and calorie expenditure level as you do. And so as an old dude, if you eat like you're still 12 years old and don't exercise, that's just how that's how everybody just gets so overweight so quick.
Yeah, you have to be an adult about it. You have to
What?
say,
That's
you
annoying.
have to be an adult about your diet.
That's annoying.
To know what's going in and out of your tank and try and fuel it properly.
Yeah.
And on Thanksgiving or on Christmas, think about what you're doing. Are you going to go to the gym that day? Maybe you're not. Maybe you're going to take a rest day. Are you going to be going on a walk with your family? Or are you going to be sitting at home and doing a lot of the driving and schlepping things in and out of the house? Those are you're going to decrease your NEAT there too. But if you know that you're going to be eating a lot more and you don't want to go to the gym, maybe offer to go take the dog on a walk. Maybe somebody's already walking the dog. Just offer to go with them. Spend some time with your family outside. Get some extra steps in order to put that food to good use and not just have it sitting in your stomach feeling lethargic the whole day, and then the next day you wake up and you want to restrict yourself. That's not a good mentality to get in the habit of.
Right. And that walk can burn another couple hundred of calories.
Yeah. If you go for an hour walk, you can burn 300 calories. Yeah. And that's like a slow gym day for me.
Right.
It's like 300 calories.
Yeah, 300 calories. Yeah, that's a decent cardio burn.
Or like an arm day.
An arm day, yeah, which is a lighter day. It's not a leg or a back
muscle.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we've covered a lot of strategy. One thing you mentioned earlier was doing a challenge with an influencer. So tell the listeners and viewers what an influencer is and where they might find a challenge, like a fitness challenge is what we're talking about.
Influencers are everywhere. It's not a real job. It's just people that are on Instagram. Maybe they have a big following.
But they make it seem like it's a real job.
Right?
Yeah.
It depends. How many sponsorships? Are they getting paid to post pictures with certain products? Are they receiving any money for those posts? Or are they just getting free discount codes? You can have 500,000 followers. You can have 1 million followers and not make any money from it. Maybe you make a chump change from it, but you have to do some other side hustle in order to actually make a living. But those influencers do put out a lot of content because they want to keep all those followers happy. And a lot of the time they'll do challenges where it'll take place over the course of a month. So then you don't have to necessarily sign up for them to be your coach or to dial in your nutrition. It's just certain workouts every day of the month.
But you could have them be your coach. That is always an option typically. Yeah. So find a challenge. So this is on Instagram?
On Instagram.
Or YouTube maybe?
Yes. And usually people that are in the fitness industry probably have an Instagram and a YouTube. But a lot of the time they'll publish or publicize their challenges on Instagram. Maybe they'll do more informational videos on YouTube about how their challenge is going. But that's how a lot of people I know are getting started into their fitness careers, rather than just hiring a coach full on and having them dictate their workouts and their nutrition.
Right.
They're just saying I've done a couple of this influencers challenges and it's really worked for me. It's as long as you're doing your own nutrition, somebody else is giving you your workouts for a month. And usually those are really low prices. It can be $30, $20, because these influencers know they don't have a ton of credibility, but maybe they write really good workout plans because they know what they're doing. Maybe you found them on Instagram because you were looking under the hashtag ab workouts or leg workouts or glute workouts, and they're using that hashtag, and you realize they have 1 million followers and a bunch of likes on that, and people saying that they've had really good results from doing those challenges. There's a really easy way for you to know what you're doing in the gym and only spend $20-$30 extra dollars without having to hire a coach, without having to do this extra nutrition thing. You just want to have somebody give you a little bit more structure for a limited amount of time, and maybe you want to go and reuse that same challenge for all of those workouts, and you can keep using it into January. Maybe you really like the results that you've gotten, and maybe you want to go hire them as a coach, or maybe you want to seek even more information and structure with another coach that actually has the credibility and the degree the certification.
What, the first guy didn't or gal didn't?
Probably not. But they
We
can
talk
put
about
out-
that all the time is all it takes to be an influencer is I'm an influencer.
Yeah, maybe you just look good.
Yeah.
Maybe you post really
yeah.
good pictures
Right.
of whatever.
You got good social media content. That is literally all it takes.
Mm-hmm.
And what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for another person.
Yeah.
And I think you see a lot of that of just content. It's like, that doesn't make any sense at all, but maybe that worked for them. I don't know. And they kind of use it as this goes for everybody.
And that's another thing is that you can't, like if somebody posts their calories, those calories are what that person has worked for, their metabolism can handle.
Yep.
And so just because they're able to cut on 1,800 calories or 2,000 calories doesn't mean that you can start eating that many calories and you're just instantly going to lose body fat.
Right.
You might be at a lot lower place. You could be at a higher place. You don't know. But just following somebody else's meals or macros is not a good place to start. Know that that person has worked for those macros and that's what's working for them right then.
Right.
But everybody is different.
Yep. And what I hear a lot of influencers saying is just keep your workouts and your food consistent and see what works for you.
That's a really good place to start.
Yeah, because not everything is the same for everybody. And before I forget, you are on Instagram as Alex A. Berg, and that's Berg Fit.
Yeah, so Alexa Berg Fit.
Alexa Berg Fit.
Yes.
At Alexa Berg Fit. That is you.
That's me.
Yep. So if you want to follow Alex and her fitness journey, she's there. So let's talk about something that has been kind of going around. It has to do with everybody's kind of on their own journey and they're doing their own thing. And there's media out there that you just have to be aware of. And that is the Netflix special, The Game Changers. And that has come up a lot because people are starting to embrace veganism just from all angles. And so you and I have talked about that, and you were like, the Game Changers. Tell me what you think about the Game Changers. And tell us first what it is.
Okay. I think they call it Game Changers is because vegans are here to change the game.
Yeah.
Of
all
fitness
games.
and nutrition.
Yeah.
The documentary, well, can't even call it a documentary. The film, because a documentary would entail that you'd see both sides of the evidence, and this film pretty much cherry picks what they want to show you. They don't show you the other side, like what meat eaters and they don't talk about like Usain Bolt, who ate like 100 chicken nuggets before
a day.
He
ate over 1,000 before he set all those world records in the Olympics.
They're only
you know how much 1,000 chicken nuggets is?
A lot of calories, but it's a lot of protein, and you're getting that from an animal source, which is going to have a full range of essential amino acids, whereas plant proteins are only partial amino acid profiles. So you're going to have to eat a lot of plants in order to get all of your necessary amino acids. And for those who don't know, amino acids are the building blocks of protein and how to put your protein to work. And
you are essentially pescatarian, meaning you eat fish and some dairy products.
Yeah,
right?
I don't really eat dairy just because.
I thought you ate eggs.
I do eat eggs, but
okay.
I don't know if I'd qualify eggs as dairy.
They come from a chicken.
Yeah. I don't know, but dairy, I think, is
dairy,
like
I guess milk
and yogurt.
Okay.
I do have kind of like an inflammatory response to dairy, so it's not really bad. I just kind of get kind of phlegmy, and I do know that it's an inflammatory response. So I just want to keep inflammation as low as possible.
Yeah. So you eat mainly fish.
Mainly.
So
fish.
it's not like you're either on the pro meat or the pro vegetarian side.
I was a vegetarian when I was 8. My sister was 2 years before me, so we always had the vegetarian option available. 1 year after I became a vegetarian, my mom became a vegetarian, so then we just stopped making meat-based meals for dinner.
What about Dad?
My dad still eats meat, but he only eats meat
Dad.
when my mom's out of town.
Good for Dad.
Yeah, he's hanging in there. But so when I got to college, there wasn't a lot of protein sources. I mean, I was getting them from like protein bars. I was living in a sorority and in a dorm. Those are the first 2 places that I lived. So it wasn't like I had access to my own kitchen and I wasn't able to make my own food. But once I was, then I started eating fish because I knew that I could get canned tuna, and that was going to be a safe food that I could eat in Indiana. There's not a whole lot of like great fresh water sources near Indiana. So
in the Midwest. Yeah.
It's going to be shipped from somewhere, and then it's
Right.
like, how fresh is your fish? And then you can probably do something like frozen shrimp. That's a good place to start.
Yeah.
But I just didn't really know how to start eating fish, like what I deemed was safe and what wasn't. I just knew that my mom and my sister ate fish when I became a vegetarian. I felt so weirded out by fish, by like the bones and fat. I just felt like it was so real to me, and I would associate everything with Finding Nemo. I'd be like, I'm eating a fish. This fish would talk. And I don't want to eat anything with a face. But then I kind of matured once I got into college, and I was like, okay, for my health, I know that I need to get protein. I'm in the gym more. I know protein's a big deal. I want to get it from whole food sources. I don't want to just keep eating protein shakes, because that does a whole number on your digestive system if that's all you're eating. So I started eating fish, and that was really efficacious for my bodybuilding career. So I ate tilapia, shrimp, tuna, salmon. Those were kind of my safe ones. I didn't venture too far out of there, and I still won't. Like, I won't do oysters or mussels. That's just too gross
Shellfish.
for me. Shellfish,
Yeah.
no
Right.
thanks. But like scallops I can do.
Okay.
So I'm just so limited in like what I want to do, but I'm not going to say no to everything for the rest of my life. But I do know that we are a family of very proud vegetarians, but my mom is pescatarian, and my sister's now a vegan.
Okay.
Which,
and have they seen The Game Changers?
I don't
They
think
probably
so,
wouldn't care.
but I feel like they should, because
Yeah.
especially my sister, since she's a vegan, she should hear what they're saying. But then if she says anything positive about it, I'm just going to be like, okay, watch this documentary, watch this video debunking everything, and just know that you're dumb to believe this stuff, because they were only taking the evidence that they wanted to show you in order to...
Give us some examples. We've got the Usain Bolt. They don't talk about that. Run through a few other...
One of the first things that I noticed was they say the gladiators were vegan.
Yep.
And they
And
found
it benefited them wildly, because obviously they're fierce guys in the
Yes.
arena.
So they said they had this like kind of plant mash, and that's what they had went like in between battles and whatnot. And they found in their bones that they had high level of calcium, which indicated that they ate a lot of plants. But that was only gladiators in one area. If you looked at other gladiator bones, they found that they had really high levels of sulfur, which came from seafood. So it really depends on your access to
Where they
food,
were.
and that's what they were thinking is
Yeah.
like, whatever's available to me, I'm going to eat it. You know, we didn't have Whole Foods back then where you can go and make all these decisions. It was really like, do we live next to a sea where there's
Right.
fresh fish?
And gladiators were prisoners of war. They did not get to choose their food at all.
Yeah.
So why were they eating barley and these other foods that were basically making them fat?
Because it was there. That was it. It's just kind of locality.
And it helps them when they get cut not to bleed out.
But plant proteins, like I said earlier, are low in essential amino acids, so you have
Yep.
to eat more of them, which is going to be a lot more carbohydrates, lower in protein. Whereas if you're going to eat meat, which is going to be lower in calories, higher in protein, and it's going to be a full essential amino acid profile, so you don't have to eat as much to get those building blocks of protein. But with plants, you have to eat a lot more. You're going to have more calories.
More calories, yeah.
So that's where you're going to get more energy from. So maybe if they're burning a whole bunch of calories throughout the day, maybe they look better. I don't know, because they have more of an energy source coming in. And maybe other gladiators only had access to fish and weren't eating as many plants, but they had more protein. They're still going to have a lower energy balance for them, so
Right.
they just eat less. The other thing that I found was really disturbing is they were claiming that a peanut butter sandwich has the same amount of protein as a 3-ounce steak or 3 eggs.
Right.
So 3 eggs has 18 grams of protein and
Yeah.
approximately 210 calories.
Yeah.
They're in 1 egg, it's 70 calories, 5 grams of fat, and 6 grams of protein. So you're thinking like it's just a protein source. You're wrong. It's a predominantly also a fat source.
A lot of fat. Yeah.
But that's just for eggs, and that's 210 calories for 3. For a steak, it can range from 18 to 24 grams of protein for about 3 ounces, and that's 150 calories. So that's that's way less than the eggs.
Yep.
But it's all protein. Depending on what slice or cut of steak, then your fat range is going to differ. That's why I say it ranges from 18 to 24. For 2 servings of peanut butter, 1 serving of peanut butter is 180 to 200 calories, and that's 2 tablespoons. So the volume is way, way less. So you're not going to feel as full. 2 servings of peanut butter is going to be about 16 grams of protein. So less than the eggs and less than the steak, but comparable. And that's going to range for about 360 to 400 calories for way less volume of food and tons of fat. So there's
Is that with the bread or without?
That's without.
Yeah, so you put in the bread, the sandwich that they show on the movie. Let's say it's wheat bread, 150 calories a slice.
Sure. And so there's 300 calories of carbohydrates on top of your 400 grams of fat.
Yeah.
So there's 700 calories right there. So they're saying that peanut butter sandwich has the same amount of protein as steak or eggs, but you're not talking about how much peanut butter you're putting on that sandwich and the total calorie content of each of those products. So does it benefit you to eat a peanut butter sandwich over 3 eggs? Probably not, especially if you're looking at counting your calories. But maybe you have a really high calorie count, and that's one way to get dense nutrients in, for sure. But know that you're getting more fat in that meal and more carbohydrates than you are protein. Whereas the other two are predominantly protein sources, except for the eggs. The eggs are also a fat source.
They've got the healthy fats.
The healthy fats and a full range of amino acids in that egg. Eggs are great.
Right. So who produced this movie?
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Who has a line of products that include
vegan products. So it's
James Cameron.
What else are?
He's the Titanic. He did the Titanic, and he also has a vegan company.
Cash grab.
Yeah. So you got to kind of take who is putting the content out and why.
And who's benefiting from it.
Who's benefiting from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think a lot of what people are seeing is, this is awesome to go vegan and I'm going to feel better. And I've eaten a lot of meat, and I do feel better when I don't eat quite as much meat. So it's one of those things where you have to kind of read between the lines and figure out what works for you. It doesn't necessarily, going vegan doesn't necessarily work for everybody. And there are countless professional athletes right now who are switching back to a meat-based diet because they don't have enough collagen in their diet, and they're getting hurt. And so to
Collagen's
heal,
great for joint health and skin elasticity.
They're getting hurt. They've gone on the vegan kick. Doesn't work for them. For some people, it works great. It works amazing. There was, I think, a strength athlete in there who had some world records, but he was also probably just juiced up on all kinds of steroids. And he had massive amounts of protein shakes.
Yeah. What I heard from that is he was mostly supplementing a ton. Like he was having his BCAAs, his EAAs, essential amino acids, on top of protein shakes. So, I mean, he was hitting his macro goals. So it really doesn't matter where you're getting your proteins, fats, and carbohydrates from as long as you're hitting those goals. But what's hard about being a vegan-only diet is you do get a lot of excess carbs and fats coming from, mostly carbs from your plants.
Because you have to eat more food in order to get the protein in there. And it's not as good protein, so you just got to kind of be really careful.
So they usually end up eating a lot less protein, which if you're trying to build muscle isn't the best thing for you.
Where you've got, how about like, the swimmer, I'm blanking, 12,000 calories a day. Michael Phelps, eating everything in sight.
Because he has to.
Yeah, and he was not vegetarian.
So I don't know if he had to eat a vegan diet, he had to have to, like, the amount of volume he would have to eat.
He couldn't do it.
His stomach would be so distended.
He wouldn't be able to train.
Talk about bloated.
Yeah. So there's all kinds of examples of athletes who have done well on the vegan diet and then athletes who haven't. And I think something interesting for people to do is just to Google the Game Changers debunked.
Yes.
And there's so many examples out there of because when I first watched the Game Changers, I was like, wow, this makes a lot of sense.
Me too.
I might give this a try.
I was like, I shouldn't be eating as many eggs.
Oh, I need to put the chicken down.
The thing that really stuck with me was when they interviewed the Miami Dolphins and had them eat 3 different kinds of burritos. They had a steak burrito, a chicken burrito, and a plant-based burrito. Bean burrito. And then they tested their blood and they put it in the centrifuge and showed the blood at the bottom and the clear liquid at the top. And they showed that once you ate a plant-based burrito, that it was really clear and it was really cloudy for the chicken and the beef. But what they're not showing you is, first of all, we don't know what kind of cut of chicken that is, so it could be more of a fatty chicken. But what causes that cloudiness is fat. So that's the only thing it is. It's just not coming from animals or not. It's just having fat in your blood and in your body. So they're totally distorting that just to make it, to demonize meat in general.
And that's what so many of the bodybuilders and fitness coaches and the doctors out there are saying, is that this documentary cherry-picked everything, and now everybody is, and we see
confused.
Yeah, they're confused. And this happens like once a year, as you get some special and some information out there, or a special study that, oh, we should do this. And then it doesn't really work for everybody, just like dieting doesn't work for everybody through the holidays the way we've talked about it. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got to kind of figure their own way to operate their own body.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you can take the tips and tricks if you want to get a hold on yourself,
yeah.
But that might not be for you. Maybe you do just eat throughout the holidays, and that's what your family does, and you don't want to sacrifice your quality of life just to look a little better or maybe lose 5 pounds, and that's okay. Whatever floats your boat, really.
Yeah.
What's going to make you happiest. You don't want to just be miserable throughout the holidays just to look a little bit better, unless that's something that's really important to you, and then it's going to make you overall more happy, because you do look leaner.
Yeah, because it's actually pretty easy to get through the holidays eating clean if you want to. Mm-hmm. It's just, what do you prioritize in your life?
Just like you budget money, you budget your calories.
Yeah, but nobody wants to do that.
Nobody wants to budget money.
No. Well, I think it's easier for people to budget money because it's like, well, I don't really have to take all that much responsibility there. I can work those numbers, but for my body, I'm just going to eat this because I like eating this.
Mm-hmm. And maybe that person doesn't have as much of a close relationship with their self-worth to how they look.
Right.
And other people, maybe looking really fit and being athletic and performing well in the gym is more important to them, so they're probably going to end up taking a little bit better care of their body.
I think it's important to everybody, and it's an ideal to everybody, but only some people want to put the work in to have it actually become a reality. I
think what also goes into that is having a little bit of motivation under your belt. Maybe you're not that far away from your goal, but if you're 30, 40 pounds overweight, it's really hard to keep going to the gym every day and eating a clean diet because you're not seeing crazy drastic changes every single day. Once you get to a leaner body fat percentage, then a couple pounds here and there make a really big difference when you're looking in the mirror, and you know that if like, hey, I've been eating 200 less calories for the past 2-3 weeks, I look a lot better. Wow, I know that I can keep this up.
Right.
Whereas if somebody else is like, I've been eating to 500 calories less every day, and I'm going to the gym and I've maybe lost 1 pound, or maybe you lose 10 pounds, but you're so overweight that you can't really see what those 10 pounds look like, but you're still making progress. Yeah. So we are about at the wrap up point. So I thought we'd kind of finish off with somebody who is either listening to this podcast or watching this podcast. What are a couple of tricks, or what are a couple of tips for them to actually just start an exercise routine or start watching their food? This is ground zero. Maybe they haven't done a lot of exercise. They haven't exercised in a while. They haven't counted their food. What are a couple of easy steps they can do to kind of maybe start going down that road? The first thing I would do is download MyFitnessPal. It's a free macro tracker. So it's just one way to have the numbers calculated in with what you're eating.
And it's got like a bar scanner on it.
Yeah. So if you're eating packaged foods, if you're eating like oatmeal or something that you have to measure out, that was why I would pair that with a food scale. So I would do exactly what you've been doing. Don't change your diet, but just start to measure and log your food to get an estimate amount of calories that you have been eating. And then once you kind of realize where you've been, then you'll have a better jumping off point for when you would decide to lower those calories and start to like having a bigger hold on your diet.
You'll kind of know.
You'll know
what a serving looks like of certain food.
Yeah, and so maybe a serving of oatmeal is 40 grams, but you've been eyeballing a lot more than that, and maybe you do more some days and less other days, but you don't really know because you're eyeballing it. A big differentiator on your diet is going to be weighing your food out on a food scale. and then put that into your MyFitnessPal, and maybe you find out that you're eating 2,000 calories. Okay, great. So this is how your body looks with that, however much exercise that you've been doing, and this many calories. So once you add in a little bit of exercise, maybe you want to keep your food there. If you just want to maintain your physique, maybe you want to do like a lean bulk, keep your food high, but make sure you're prioritizing protein. And so I would say a baseline for that is between 0.8 to 1.2 per grams of your body weight. So just multiply whatever your body weight is by either 0.8 or if you really want to put on muscle, 1.2 grams. That'll give you an estimate of how much protein you should be eating, and then fill in the rest of your day with carbs and fats. Some people like to eat more fats. Some people like to eat more carbs. I would say carbs are better for energy in a workout, but some people just like having higher fats. Maybe they love their avocados and their eggs, and so you want to have
healthy
a little
fats.
bit healthy fats. They're not bad for you. But you do know that for 1 calorie of fat, it's nine. For 1 gram of fat, it's 9 calories. For 1 gram of carbs, it's 4 calories. For 1 gram of protein, it's 4 calories. Okay. So carbs are a little less expensive than fats. So that's why I would say keep your fats moderate, around 20 to 30%, and then the rest of your day should be carbohydrates after you've allotted yourself their protein. And
MyFitnessPal will give you a pie chart that will show you your percentage.
Yeah.
So that's the cool thing about it.
Yeah, it's really helpful because they'll usually say like 50% is your carbs, however many, like 25% for protein, 25% for fats. Maybe you change that a little bit.
Right.
So.
One of the things that I watch is, I've told you about this and talked to you about this, is 𝐒𝐞𝐚𝐭𝐭𝐥𝐞 and his summer challenge.
Yeah.
He's done a summer challenge for the last 3 years, and he videos every single day of that summer challenge, and he gets shredded. And he's basically a professional YouTuber. He owns a gym and fitness clothing and stuff.
And he's tried to go pro and hasn't turned pro yet.
Yeah.
So there's like a good estimate of saying like even somebody that looks amazing, has tons of followers, does not mean they're a professional in the eyes of the IFBB.
No. He just doesn't have enough of a physique to get that done in his...
He just probably needs to look a little bit bigger. Maybe he doesn't want to mess around with PEDs. Maybe he has messed around with PEDs and it's just not working for him.
He doesn't look big enough.
Yeah, but he's like more of a physique model. I mean, he owns a clothing company, so he wants to look good in his clothing. I mean, every guy's probably like, I could be bigger, but he probably looks fine and he's fine with his lean physique. But in order to go pro, he'd probably have to put on a couple more pounds of muscle.
Yep.
So
if you're looking for examples of a physique athlete who shreds and shows you how to use MyFitnessPal, that's a great way to do it. It's YouTube. Granted, he's young and he's probably annoying to most older folks, but I found a lot of inspiration there because he really dials in. This is how you eat. This is how you exercise if you want to cut fat.
And he knows how to shred because he knows how much he has to eat when he has to maintain his physique, where it's like a little bit higher body fat, but like maybe he has more energy, he can put up more weight in the gym. Yep. And then maybe when he's cutting, he goes from anywhere from 200 to 500 calories in a deficit. He increases his cardio, which it further increases the energy output. And then decreases the calorie input. So you are going to lose those calories. Your body's going to respond. It's going to find that extra energy from your fat stores, and that's how you get nice and shredded and cut.
Right. Yeah.
But you have to find where your baseline is first. So that's why I would recommend any new beginner to find out what you're eating already and then make your changes. Maybe you start going to the gym, so you already are in a 300 to 500 calorie deficit in addition to those 200 calories. So maybe you don't need 2,000 calories. So maybe you don't need to go on a strict cut right away. Because a lot of the time people will go into too severe of a deficit and lose some muscle, overdo it on the cardio, and then we're getting into that skinny fat.
Yep.
Danger zone.
Alex, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I enjoyed talking something other than real estate and business today. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Because fitness is kind of one of those things that I really enjoy doing outside of what we do here, and we are out of here typically at 4 p.m. and that's because I am on my way to the gym, and so is Darian, and these guys do their own thing. So that's kind of a big priority for us. So it's fun to be able to talk to somebody who's in that world. We get that world just by watching videos on TV. Mm-hmm. So I encourage you to do some videos.
Yeah,
do some more content, because you have good content when you put it up.
I just need to make more of it.
Just put up the content. Like, it's kind of like Gary Vee says that we always talk about. How much content should you be putting up? More. It's just that simple.
Yeah, and I
More.
could definitely be putting up a lot more. I'm not posting once a day, which is usually a rule
Yeah.
of thumb for a lot of influencers, but
Right.
I'm not doing that. I'm lucky if I get one every few weeks,
Well,
but
yeah.
I could do better.
Yeah, it's kind of like people starting on that diet or starting to think about fitness. Just start those reps going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Alex, thank you so much for coming to our Only in Seattle podcast. I really appreciate it. I hope you have the great holidays.
Thank you.
And do you have any plans for shows in the near future?
No,
Okay.
after doing so many shows, it does take a hit on your hormones and your thyroid health. And both my thyroid and my hormones have taken a big hit.
Okay.
So I'm trying to get into a healthy homeostasis before I do any kind of cutting. But I've already been able to lose a lot of body fat without doing anything too crazy. So
16% is really low for being off season.
yeah.
Yeah.
And eating
Yeah.
over 2,000 calories a day.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. Well, good luck with that. Look forward to seeing your progress at the gym and also on Instagram.
For sure.
Thank you again so much for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Yeah, you bet. Again, I'm Sean Reynolds, the owner of Summit Properties Northwest and Reynolds & Klein Appraisal. For everybody listening to the podcast, thank you so much for listening. And for those of you watching on YouTube, appreciate it. And we'll see you in the next one. Happy holidays, everybody. Thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.